Welcome to the Inner Reboot with Sam and Heidi, your weekly pit stop to shake off the stress, laugh at life's plot twists and recharge your mindset. Because let's be honest, transformation doesn't have to be boring or involve 75 different types of smoothie.
So grab a drink, smoothies if you must, and join us for the wins, the fails and the awkward bits, because sometimes the biggest breakthroughs start with an inner reboot and occasionally forgetting why you even walked into the room.
Hello.
Hey, how
We're
are
back
you?
again. Another episode. So this week we are going to be diving into limiting beliefs. I think it flows quite nicely from what we've done with the goals.
The scary world of limiting beliefs.
I know. What even are they? What are What is your version? If you could create a sentence that was your version of a limiting belief, what would it be?
Oh God, that's a really, really, really big question. My version of limiting beliefs would be largely the things that take up 90% of my brain space all of the time. Um, They are the thoughts, the passing thoughts, or the belief systems that we have. Actually, they're not passing; they end up being passing thoughts. But the belief systems that we have, which limit us. So, for example, this probably wouldn't be a surprise because I've talked about it before. I, in some previous roles, have felt less than or not good enough because of my educational background, because I didn't go to university. That for me has been quite a big one. So it's like things that you believe make you less than or have an impact on you negatively, but 9 times out of 10 they are complete nonsense.
Yes. Yeah, I
It's probably
agree.
not a very polished answer to what a limited belief is. You've probably got a far more polished.
No, I just think they're like evil little gremlins that chew away at your self-confidence and your soul until there's nothing left.
Basically, yeah. I think also, but they're not known things, are they? I think for me now, they feel like something I'm really aware of because I've done training as a coach and I've done some therapy and you talk about these things. But before that, I can remember when I'd done my coach training and I found out about them, I was literally like, huh, that's incredible, but also very annoying. But it hadn't even occurred to me that these things live in our brains.
And they're so powerful. That's the problem.
Yeah.
The main
so powerful.
problem is the power that they hold and the influence that they have over you, and then the impact that that has to make decisions and get things done. Like, it's so difficult. And when we think about, if you link in negativity bias, our brains are almost hardwired anyway, historically, to focus on negative because, of course, historically it was a survival mechanism. So it has to be there.
Yeah.
So it's like, it is part of that survival mechanism. So we do automatically kind of focus on negative things. And then when you think about the experiences that we've had, or negative experiences, that then almost shapes your belief system, which is where you then become limited. So it's kind of, it just sounds awful to say.
It does.
This is all doom
It
and gloom.
does.
Oh my God.
It's not doom and gloom. We're going to bring people out of the doom and gloom. But awareness of them, I think so much of our worlds in terms of development, personal development, growth, etc., coaching, is so much about awareness because I still struggle with nearly all of my limiting beliefs that I probably identified, how many years ago would it be? 6 years ago, when I first found out about them as a concept, are still there. Like, it's sort of the same as like who you are and your values, etc. I don't think you can ever get rid of them completely. I think it depends how long they've been hardwired into you, probably. But I think awareness and seeing them and knowing them is the most important thing you can do. And then what do you do about it? But imagine not having any limiting beliefs. Do you reckon anybody's like that oblivious? Probably.
I don't know. If there is anybody out there that is, please let us know.
But it doesn't help though, does it? Actually, that doesn't help me in any way, shape or form because I can't get rid of mine. They're there. Like, it would be interesting to understand how somebody operates if they don't have any. But that's not the answer or a solution.
No, it's about, and I think going back to when you said about you can't get rid of them, I think you can reshape them. I definitely think you can have influence over them and reshape them just by your the way that you think. Because it's,
Yeah.
an example of like, "Oh, I can't do that because I'm not very good at this." Well, it's like, actually,
Yeah.
no, I could do it. I just need to give it a try and see what happens. So that's obviously shaping that bit of self thought, which is kind of where limiting beliefs come from. So it's the way we think and our view of our past experiences, and we bring those negatively into current or future situations. So then it becomes about reshaping that limiting belief with something that's positive rather than negative. But it's
Yeah.
really difficult to do though, because the limiting beliefs come from experiences that are so deep rooted in the way that we feel about them. That's the hardest bit. It's almost engaging and rewiring the emotional side of what we think about them.
Well, it's often something that's sort of limiting beliefs don't come from something that happens once quite often, unless
Mm.
it's a really big like single experience. They often come from being reinforced on a day-to-day basis, week-to-week, month-to-month basis, or something that you attach to, and then that sort of, like you say, it feeds your narrative to everything else moving forward. You sort of use that as um, a fact rather than a belief or something that you can change and adapt. And I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's also linked so much to habits. Because it's about interrupting that thought and changing how you respond to that thought
Mm.
rather than it being limited. And habits, I was trying to like just think back to like, for example, if you was trying to break a negative habit, you also can have limiting beliefs related to that. So for example, smoking, when I did smoke a long, long time ago, would be like, well, I can't possibly quit smoking because I can't like go half an hour without having a cigarette. Do you know what I mean? Like everything becomes so
Mm.
ingrained and it reinforces the narrative all of the time. Or it's like, well, I can't go to there because I wouldn't be able to have a cigarette. And therefore it's limiting your ability to experience other things.
Mm.
And of course you can,
Yeah. And
but
again, it comes back to that language that you use. I can't because I
yeah,
can't. Well, you can. You just have to try it.
or just, yeah, or choose to, or,
Yeah.
but some of them aren't that simple, are they? Like, and I think it's really easy in probably almost everything we talk about to it's really easy, and I think you see it a lot on social media where it's like, well, you just make a decision to do things differently, or you just try it, or you just, I know you are really good at just trying something and then seeing how it goes, or like, oh, you just do it. When people say, oh, you just do it, really baffles me because they're like, oh, I wanted to set up a business, so I just did it, or I wanted to do this, so I just did it. And you have to understand your limiting beliefs deeper before you can do that. And I think that's the bit. It's like awareness of what it is, then knowing how it plays out or
Mm.
what your triggers are or what's making it worse. And then what can you do about it? Because if your
Yeah.
environment is making it worse, then what do you need to do about your environment? Because your limiting belief isn't going to change if you're constantly in that world.
Same environment. Yeah. How do you even begin to identify limiting beliefs, though? Is it literally as simple as looking back on past things that you've done and maybe not achieved and then diving into why you didn't achieve them? Or is it that huge piece of reflection that comes with like analyzing your self talk and whether it's negative or positive? Like it'd just be useful to understand how do you go about starting to identify them so that you can then get on that journey of like putting a different spin on them.
It's a really good question. I think there's multiple different ways and it will depend on what's relevant to people. I.e., if you're really good at self reflection, then you probably can identify them that way. The way I've identified mine is largely if I've been in a coaching relationship or like as in I've been being coached or through conversations in the moment. So for example, um, if I wanted to do something and there's a barrier, trying to work out what that barrier is will often lead me to a limiting belief.
Right.
So very rarely will the barrier be something practical or an environment thing or a situation because I probably would have dealt with them or overcome them. 9 times out of 10, it's a belief that's stopping me from doing something. So that's how I've sort of always identified them. But I think reflection is another really good way in terms of like what stopped me from doing that thing, and then you
Mm.
can reflect on it. Or um, I don't feel like I put like gave my best self in certain situations or environments or conversations. Or I guess a really good one for us that we've probably talked about a bit is like networking. Like I will avoid
Oh,
networking like the plague because I have such a strong limiting belief about my abilities to have like a really around that intro conversation.
mm.
And so it's almost stopped me doing anything before I've even tried because I just won't go there.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I do feel like when I try and identify, excuse me, when I try and identify mine, it's almost in the moment because I'm already immersed into it. So if I'm feeling
Mm.
really nervous about something or really anxious about something, it's in the moment that I can go, why do I feel this way? Oh, it's because of this. But then what I tend to do is kind of forget about it
Be like, okay,
because then,
that's why
yeah,
then. That's my
because like I
reason.
then have to get on and do the thing
Bother.
that I don't want to do. And then, so then I don't reflect on it after the fact to think, why did I feel so nervous or why did I feel anxious? I need to fix that because it's already done and the situation is complete. But then what ends up happening is the same thing will happen. So it's like this repetitive cycle of
Yeah.
like, I feel a certain way, I feel nervous, anxious, whatever it may be. So I'm clearly not dealing with it. That's the problem because I'll kind of, I don't know, scrabble my way through this really awful situation that I don't want to be in with this thoughts of like, I can't do this. I'm not confident enough. I'm not outgoing enough, whatever it may be. And then when it's over, I go, oh, phew, thank God that's
That
done
was
with.
fun.
And then I move on. So I'm not
And
doing
then,
anything
yeah.
productive to almost prepare myself for the next time that I'm in that situation. That's one of my problems is almost like, it's not necessarily procrastination. It's just because I move on from it and then the next thing is in front of me.
Well, because you survive it, but then also there's a bit of recovery, isn't there? It's like, oh God, thank God I survived that. That's absolutely fine. I think with a lot of them, no, that's probably too broad. I think with some limiting beliefs, it is that case of like, you've just got to keep doing it until you can prove yourself, until it becomes regular enough and you can prove otherwise. I think
Mm,
that's evidence is so important in all of this as well, I think. Um,
yeah.
because 9 times out of 10, evidence and facts will prove that your limiting belief isn't true. Like it isn't the thing. What am I trying to say? Like you can still go and do those things and you will still achieve what you want to achieve. It just makes you feel horrible. So all it does is impact your internal monologue and your internal
Mm,
feelings. Because at times some of our limiting beliefs are so strong and big, but we still have to do the thing. Like you still have to go and do the thing.
hmm
And I wonder if you started, say, doing networking every week, would eventually it just sort of disappear?
That fills me with absolute dread, even those words do every week.
Imagine the
Absolutely
energy
not.
sapping. Like you'd
No.
need like it's basically you'd have like Friday to recover, Monday,
Yeah.
the weekend. You'd have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday probably preparing. You'd do it on Thursday. So basically that'd be your week,
So
like
it would
just
consume my entire life is what you're
emotionally.
telling me. Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah.
Um, I think, yeah, I definitely, there's something in that whole, fuck it, just do it and find out. I think there's an element of that. What's the worst that's going to happen? But I also think there's an element of where does it come from as well? I think there's two things. There's almost like pushing the boat out and thinking, sod it, I'm just going to do it. Like, how hideous could it be? And then also looking back at why do I have those preconceptions about these particular things anyway? And I think it's
Mm.
odd because a lot of mine are about things like self-confidence and not being nervous around new people, which is odd because historically as a child, I did so much of that, like exposure to like new people and new situations through the hobbies and activities that I did, that I look back now and think, well, I really shouldn't be that way. So I don't know why I am. Um,
Do you think part of
Maybe,
it is just because you don't do it as much?
yeah, but also maybe I've done it too much and now I know how bad it is. I'm not going to do it anymore. Um, but it's odd things. Like when I was younger, um, with the school that I was at, my mum we would go and do things like the competition, like a poetry reading or like a Bible reading, or when you stand up, in front of like a big hall full of people
Mm,
and you get a certificate at the end and stuff and things like that. You would think, actually, I should be more confident. But it's odd because I think my brain is almost trained into this. I could get up in front of 600 people, no problems, and present something. That would not bother me at all.
yeah,
I think it's that because I'm prepared, I know what I'm saying, I know what I'm doing, and I don't have to actually interact with people because it's just me talking. That's fine. But that feeling of going in a room and meeting new people and trying to figure out what to say, that's the bit that fills me with dread because it's unknown to me. So I don't know what they're going to say to me. Therefore, I haven't planned what I'm going to say back. So for me, I think there's the fear of the unknown, which is creating that limiting belief around, am I going to look stupid? Am I going to sound stupid? So that's where
mm,
mine, I think, comes from. But it's really weird. I've been reading a book by Eckhart Tolle called The Power of Now, which is really good. It's like a modern take on spirituality. And it's kind of about sort of not being weighted down by our past experiences, but also not fearing future ones. So actually, how powerful can it be to be in the moment right now and be really aware and present? Because obviously there is the whole mindfulness piece, but it's just really interesting of thinking, actually, we are really weighted down by past experiences. So it's
yeah.
been really
But you
eye-opening
can't
to read.
change.
Yeah, it's a really good book. I would recommend it for anybody that kind of wants to explore that, how to be more mindful and present in the moment right now, and how our past experiences do create a lot of weight in our brains, and the way that we think about things, which in turn, if you can become more mindful in the moment right now, then it almost removes some of that fear of future
Mm.
experiences, which of course is tied to our limiting beliefs. So yeah, it's a really interesting book. I would recommend it.
I think as well, like limiting beliefs. I am going to have a look at that actually because I'm very aware that I'm like in the moment probably 1% of the time, and I will do everything I can to avoid it. In terms of sitting with like thoughts and feelings, yeah, quiet time is not the one for me. Um, but I think also our limiting beliefs can become really wrapped up in our values and our belief system as a whole, and so sometimes it can be really difficult to untangle them as limiting and really
Yes.
work that
Yeah.
out. And I think that's quite interesting as well. Because I had no idea of the impact, I think, in terms of not just the obvious, but the other elements that they were stopping me either exploring or trying or wanting to experience. And I think one of mine shows up, and I think it's similar, it's still like under that umbrella of like, probably goes back to educate. Like, I think me not, me being surrounded by people who were so super intelligent and had been like had these like mad educations and that world has led me, my limiting belief therefore becomes, oh, well, I can't possibly do X, Y, and Z because I don't have the knowledge or the insights. And the danger of that is I then find it really hard to just try things or to just risk them because then I think, well, I need to know everything about this
Mm.
to then be able to do it. And of course, as soon as you then, the flip side of that is as soon as you give me a deadline or you tell me exactly what needs to happen by when, I will do it
Mm.
because I also want to perform and I want to be able to deliver and I need urgency and all of those things. Um, so I wonder is like, how can we almost force our limiting beliefs out by creating systems or structures that don't allow them to have a voice? I guess it's partly that as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I wonder how much of it is deep rooted in fear as well. An example that you just gave, how much fear, the emotion fear was involved in some of your decision making? So is it like fear of failure, fear of sounding silly, looking silly, fear of not
Mm.
knowing enough? It's that bit. Sometimes I think maybe it's turning it the other way and thinking, well, actually, what am I so frightened of? What am I frightened that the outcome is going to be? And how do you then chip away backwards to figure out how to remove the fear from it? Which then in turn, obviously, would sort of start to unlock some of those limiting thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good point. It's so mine's definitely fear, like, rooted in, but mainly either not knowing the answer or looking silly, or it was what we was
Mm,
talking about in the other week as well, about like not speaking up in meetings and stuff like that. Some of that is
yeah.
because I'm a reflector, but largely, this is interesting actually, I've always hidden behind, well, I'm a reflector. I'm actually
Okay.
probably not a reflector in any way. I am to some
I
extent, but
don't
I'm
think
actually
you're a
not. Like,
reflector.
I massively am like, do you think how many times I just blurt my ideas out to you? So I'm probably not, but I've probably learned that I can use that in meetings to cover the fact that I don't want to like look silly or
Mm,
say something where people are like, what the hell is she talking about? Or any of that stuff. And so because I'm not like, it's really weird, isn't it? I was in like a very professional world for so long, and I just don't feel like a professional person, like in that like suited and booted and say all these posh words and all of that sort of stuff. So I wonder actually how much I hide behind the limited, like I do stuff
mm.
because of the limiting belief, but I hide behind other things that are more acceptable. Like, if I sat in a meeting and was like, I'm actually not going to say anything because I've got this huge belief that I just talk absolute shite. People would be like, who's your mate and why did you bring her? Whereas if I'm like, I'm a reflector, then that's
Yeah, people go, "Oh, yeah, yeah, no, that's fine." But
yeah.
it's really
But
weird
actually my
because
best ideas come out in the moment and letting my brain scramble. They don't come out by me reflecting. Oh my fucking God.
no, but
Oh my God. Just spent the last
um,
15 years doing something
of it
really unhelpful.
what's really interesting, though, having worked with you and been in meetings with you, I can honestly say the perception you have of yourself is completely different to the perception of others. Because I, when we used to be in meetings, obviously you'd come along and I'd be like, brilliant, Heidi's in this one. She's going to have some great ideas. This is going to be awesome. So my perception of you is value add. I know
Yeah.
that if I'm in a meeting and I will actually say I genuinely am a reflector. That is me because I
Yes.
definitely like to get my thought process and my ducks in a row. And I like to hear the opinions of others first before I kind of dive in with anything. And mainly it's because I'm just processing everything. And I like to
Well,
then come out with a response that is generated from everybody's input. So when you would be in a meeting, I'd be really happy because I know that you're such a massive ideas generator and all of the things you say are really valuable. So my perception of you is that you bring so much meaning to the meeting that I would almost use it as an excuse to be like, brilliant, I don't have to think of all of these fantastical things because Heidi's there and she'll do it and I can just bounce back off those. So whilst you're in that meeting thinking, I'm worried I'm going to sound stupid, I'm worried I'm going to say the wrong thing, I'm in the meeting going, thank God Heidi's here because she's a genius at all this stuff. So
it's
isn't it
so interesting, isn't
interesting
it?
the story you tell yourself versus the way that other people see you? And I think
Yeah.
it's something really interesting to dive into individually as a person to think, how do I see myself versus how do others see me? And actually, maybe that's an activity to do, like speak to somebody and say, when we're together in this situation, what is your perception of me? Because I guarantee it will be very different to the perception you have of yourself.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And definitely
Mm,
something we don't do enough of. When you're at
no.
work, seeking feedback. I guess this is what makes trying to move forward and progress things, particularly limited beliefs or barriers or anything like that, really difficult. We don't get the only data we get and the only inputs we get are our own narratives. It's
Mm,
very rare we get the other stuff like the facts that counter that. So that's really insightful and really helpful. So what I'm seeing as like you're getting too excited and you're running away with ideas, so just shut up, actually is probably the whole purpose I'm there in that room. But I've seen it as a negative and it's not seen like that in the room. And I think it's also really interesting um, in terms of the importance of those different roles. So, for example, on the flip side of that is you then provide the really thoughtful questions and ask the really difficult questions and ask the really meaningful things that bring us back to reality in the now, because you've sat back and listened and understood. You're
Mm.
really clear on the brief and you're really clear on what we're trying to achieve. So you can also like make sense of the chaos. It isn't chaos, but positive chaos within the meeting
Mm.
um, as well. And
Yeah. It's I
honestly, like my mind's a bit blown.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? The other thing that I thought as you were talking was at the beginning bit of what you said around we don't do it enough. Isn't it really interesting that we, even if we're really good at seeking feedback, we normally ask for feedback based on a situation. So feedback on a meeting or feedback on a project or feedback on something, a deadline that you've delivered. But we very rarely ask for feedback on who we were within that.
Yeah.
We don't very often say, so how did I come across and actually what value did I add? And, what was the perception of me during that? We don't do it. And I wonder whether that's fear of somebody actually saying the things that we believe, the negative things that we believe. Maybe we just don't want to know. But I think it's a really valuable activity because perception of self is so different. It's like, what do you want your brand to be? I think that's another thing as well. Like, what
Mm.
do you want to be known for? But until we ask other people, we're actually kind of a bit blind to it. We're in the dark because, and this conversation has proved it. Your view of you is completely different of my experience of you. And I think it's really important to kind of just explore. I think with people that you're very close to, that you trust, I think it's a
Yeah, like
really
it
good
has to be done in a
activity.
safe
Yeah, have to
way,
feel, yeah.
because you're not seeking feedback for like it's not seeking feedback in the typical way that in a corporate world you're used to, in terms of
Mm,
like what's constructive criticism and what can I do better, and like, which is all really great stuff, and the like it would be even better if you done X, Y, and Z, like all of that's wonderful. But actually, when you're trying to understand you, not your outputs and not your performance,
mm,
but you, your values and your behaviors, that has to be done in a much safer way with people you can trust, but also so that you can be really clear about why you're asking them and what you want as well. It's not like, this isn't a form exercise. This isn't a like
mm,
end of project wrap up. This is a, hey, I'm just really curious. Because also, if you can be open with that person and be like, oh, I'm really struggling with this, or I really feel like this is how I come across, or this stops me being able to achieve what I want to achieve, then you can get the insights from people that either say, actually, yeah, there is a bit of that. So then you can go, okay, well, what do I do about that then?
mm,
But also, you can build some context around that. So, yes, if that is a barrier, maybe there's a really real thing happening in your environment or your context that's bringing that to
mhm,
life as well. Like, you can get more. And I think
mm.
the more insights and information you have, the more you can do about it. But also, the more facts you've got against your gremlin, which is your limited belief.
Yeah. And I think I think as well, the awareness enables you to lean into it more. So if somebody identifies it as a really good thing, the thing that you've been thinking, for example, may be quite negative, but they see it, they have a different view of it. And it's something that they really value and it's a really positive contribution, you can lean into it more. So actually that
Mm.
awareness not only helps you to understand that it's not something negative, it also enables you to lean into it so you can bring it to the party so other people get more out of it as well. So it's quite interesting. Hopefully it doesn't backfire though and somebody goes, yeah, you're just really crap. I mean, that would be awful.
That would be awful. But if you're asking about something specific, but and also, like, there's so many things that are intertwined to it as well, aren't there? Like in terms
Mm,
of like their your limiting beliefs. I also, like, part of my brain was just starting to move into like growth mindset, which is obviously something that we're massive advocates for. But so much of what I advocate and what has been involved in my work, I'm so poor at doing myself.
mm,
And I think I find it really easy to flip and have a growth mindset on things that are, I've just realized this is like just dawned on me, things that I'm okay with or I don't have a limiting belief of. If it's something that is a limiting belief or something that's deep rooted or something that I've struggled with for a long time, I can't just flick those into a growth mindset. Like I can't do, like you see the statements, don't you? Like I can't, I should,
I can, I
I,
will. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's all like great. But it's very rare with anything like this that you're dealing with just that thing.
Hmm.
Like it's such a holistic viewpoint. So I think flipping a growth mindset, yes, there are points where you can, if you're just in a bit of a black hole and you're just trying to get something done, you need to have that switch and that's helpful. But quite often it's like embedded into loads of other things that you sort of need to unpick as well.
It is. And I think that's where some of that positive self talk can make a
Mm,
difference. Um, and it isn't about tackling one thing. I think it's positivity in general, like actually um, the approach, like creating a positive approach to everything is like a really good first step because it
yeah.
enables you to kind of think, well, I know that my limiting belief is this and I can't, I think I can't do it. And I think it's almost that how do you switch that bit to become really positive of actually, I'm just going to try it. What's the harm? And I think starting with things that are low risk as well makes a massive difference, that are
Mm.
kind of low impact.
Yeah, you can
But I
almost go like,
think,
what's the tiniest thing that I can do that will
mm,
start to shift this?
yeah,
Because then if it goes wrong, which it won't, because nothing is that major,
mm,
then you will every tiny little bit you'll get more and more evidence.
yeah.
And then before you know it, it'll be shifted and you'll be where you want to be.
Hmm. Yeah, some really good stuff. The one thing that this book is really good actually. It's Yes, I Can by Robin Nixon. But there's some bits in here that are so it's almost achieve a level of self confidence to match your abilities, which is really interesting because we talk a lot about strengths and how to lean into them, but it's linking your strengths with your self confidence
Mm,
to give you even more power
yeah.
over the limiting beliefs, which I think
Well,
is really interesting.
and they give
And
you energy. So you've instantly got a boost there anyway
yes,
if you're using your strengths.
yeah, and giving you energy. And it says, quickly recover from failure and try again, which I think, again, is that
Yeah.
piece around, okay, my limiting belief put me in this situation. And actually, I did a thing and it didn't work out how I wanted it. But actually, the quicker you get on and do it again, you're recovering from that failure, which again, in turn, quietens down the limiting beliefs. And then the bit that I love is diminishing negative energy, which I
Yeah.
think is really, you can see how much, look, I've used my eyes are full of post-its. It's really interesting, diminishing negative energy, because our limiting beliefs are so full of energy, which is what makes them so powerful, that
Mm,
until you actually start to diminish them, you can't decrease the energy that is
yeah.
actually keeping them alive. And I think that's a really good thing to think about and concentrate on, is actually, why am I breathing so much life and energy into this limiting belief? Because all you're doing is making it more and more powerful. And I
Like,
think
how do you
that's the
starve
bit.
it little by
Yeah,
little? Because
exactly.
I think quite often the limiting beliefs, when you get down to it, are big things. Like, and they
Hmm.
manifest in lots of like smaller things, but they're largely like a really big belief. Um, just like our positive beliefs that we have and our values are really big and they're really integral. The limiting ones are exactly the same. And so you can't, it's not something you can necessarily change or adapt overnight in terms of the whole thing. Like you can't just get rid of it overnight.
Mm.
But you can tap away at it. I really like that starving approach, like in terms of
Hmm.
it's not serving me and it's not helping. It's not protecting me from anything. Like
Hmm.
I think a lot of the stuff we also talk about goes back to that fight, flight, or freeze, doesn't it? Like, and
It
it
does.
just
Yeah.
doesn't matter in this
Hmm.
situation. And maybe that's the first step. Like, is this life or death? Like, no. Okay then. Christ, would be in trouble if I was like a surgeon or something, wouldn't we? Um, like, and often it's not. And so therefore, like, what's the really small thing that you can do to try and chip away chip away at.
Mm.
But I also like, it's almost like making them into mini experiments, isn't it? So we had
Yeah.
mini missions last week. Now we can have some mini experiments, and then you're getting the facts and you're getting the proof, and you can move things forward.
Hmm.
Um, the other thing that I have noticed a massive difference in terms of not specifically just limiting beliefs, but how I'm feeling, like you was talking about approaching things more positively, more generally, is when I do a bit of a reflection at the end of the day. Ideally, I write it down, but if not, as close to bedtime as possible. When I take a moment to go, what went well today? Like, tell me 3 good things that went well. That massively makes such a difference to
Mm.
how I'm feeling about things, but also even just how I then wake up the next day. Because I got into a negative talk cycle. And there was loads of reasons for it, and there's loads of context and loads of factors, etc. But I was also then, it was like, oh, well, after school pickup was really difficult because one child was really aggy and the other one was really tired. And then bedtime was a disaster because of this and whatever else. But I then, and so that become my narrative. And I'd go to bed feeling a bit like, oh, everything was a bit heavy and a bit hard. And so instead, there'd either be like, sometimes there were really big things that had happened, like good big things I had to remind myself of. Or sometimes it'd be like, oh, but we had a really nice cuddle before bed. Or we read
Mm.
a really nice story. So the lead up to bedtime was a nightmare, but we had a really nice story. Or someone said this to me, like, and thinking them is great, but I think there is some science somewhere. If you write them down, then it also helps to rewire your brain. So I think there's
Yeah.
loads of like little tips and little things that you can do, not specifically for limiting beliefs, but to rewire your brain to think differently or for its approach to be quite different.
Yeah,
Um,
it's then creating positive energy, isn't it? And I think that bit around writing 3 down before bed, but then I think rereading them in the morning could
yeah.
almost frame your day to be like, this is what I achieved yesterday, and I remember how great that felt. So then you start your day with that great feeling because we know energy breeds energy. So what we're trying to do is breed positive energy, not negative energy.
Mm,
So almost starting the day rereading what you've achieved the day before sets you on the right note. And I think as well, it's true. It's this with children. I remember when the girls were younger, um, it's almost like kind of reminding them as well. So obviously
yeah.
saying like your example of like a really lovely bedtime story, say out loud to them, we're going to read a really nice bedtime story because last night we read a lovely one and it was really whatever the words that you use. Um, I think as well starts to get them at a young age in that positive
Yeah, that's so
space as
true.
well, because sometimes I think life is very, very busy, and we can become very unaware of how our energy is impacting others.
Mm,
So if you're constantly on that negative energy train, it's almost impacts the people around you. So it's actually how do you starve the negative stuff of energy and really increase the positive stuff? And I think a lot of that is around what you're saying around verbalization. So writing it down, rereading it, but then verbalizing what went really well and why it went well. Again, kind of breeds all that positive energy.
yeah, I think that's really, really interesting, particularly around the people we're around, but also our children, but also other people at work, like
Yeah.
just how you think how easily we could perhaps interrupt some people's thoughts or just reflect back and be like, oh, that was really helpful actually, or really like that. You're really great at doing that. Um, like just in terms of like appreciation, but being really clear and um, I don't know, just making somebody's day with like
Hmm.
oh, that was really great, like, or yeah, I don't know. It doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be major, but that also helps reinforce the right narrative rather than the wrong one, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I
Okay.
think it's really interesting. I think if anybody's got any ideas around, obviously drop in the comments anything that any knowledge that you have around limiting beliefs, how you kind of change your limiting beliefs and how you create positive energy, that would be amazing.
Yeah, we'd love to hear
Mm.
because I think there's so many different ways you can do it and you can make a difference on this topic and these thoughts.
Yeah.
And it's almost like never ending. So yes, what's your preferred thing to do in terms of like positive outlook, positive self-talk? Like what do you do?
Um, I try and focus on things that went really well of things that I thought wouldn't go well. Does that make sense? So it's
Cool, yeah.
almost like something that I thought would be really awful or not turn out particularly well, when it does and it surprises me how well it turned out, I give it a lot of airtime because it reinforces that my original perspective and fear of what was going to happen didn't come to fruition. And actually, what did come to fruition was something really positive and really amazing. So I try to keep those alive because it reminds me that not everything I think is real. And it's like,
Yes.
just because I think this is going to happen, sometimes it doesn't happen. And when it doesn't, and the output is really positive, yeah, it baffles me. And I'm like, wow, I was not expecting that. So I tend to focus on positive outcomes from expectations that I didn't think were going to be positive because it just helps my confidence to think I can do this and it will go well.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting.
Mm,
I hadn't really thought about that. And also, you've just reminded me, like I saw it the other day, a reminder that your brain literally doesn't know the difference between reality and your thinking and
mm,
your thought processes. So if you spend like 10 times as much time telling your brain that the thing is going to go wrong, even if it doesn't, your
mhm,
brain has heard the negative narrative far
mhm.
more. So therefore, your reflection is then really important to counterbalance that because you're giving it the
Yeah,
airtime, just as much airtime
yeah.
positively. That's really interesting. I like that one. Are you quite good at just curious question? Are you good at like so all of that reflection or the thinking that you do and being
Mm,
aware of some of this stuff? Are you a like you can just do that without any prompts, without any aids? Like you're quite
mm. Yeah.
good
I've
at
always,
just
yeah.
processing that.
I think I didn't learn to be that way. I think I I've just become that way.
Yeah.
So it kind of comes naturally. So I don't have to think of ways to do it. It just happens. The danger zone in that, though, of being reflecting naturally. So there's a positivity around I can just do it. Don't need any
Mm.
prompts to do it. But the danger side of it is that I can then overthink really easily.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's as much as it's a good thing, it can also be a little bit of a demon because sometimes I will overthink and then I have to really try hard to block out the negative talk,
Yeah.
and not overthink it too much. So that's the only bit that I kind of have to work out and be very aware of to actually stop at that point. Like that's enough, not go down too much of a thought rabbit hole with it. But yeah,
Yeah. That's interesting. I'm not very good at. No, I'm very good at overthinking, and then I almost need the bit of pen and paper to stop me thinking
right.
or to turn it into. So, and I rely a lot on visual aids. So, like, if I had, this is probably a good thing, if I had like something up on my wall that prompted me to do some reflection, or it gave me like the cue or the prompt or an interesting question, I will do it. I'm not very good at just doing it. Like, it's not
Yeah,
instilled in my. So,
yeah.
for example, if I don't have a notebook to hand, I won't even think about doing the three good things.
Right. Okay.
Like, there's so many
That
things that
makes
have to
sense.
happen for me to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not. So I'm probably the opposite. I'm probably the flip.
But you're aware of it though, and I think that's the first step,
Yeah.
awareness of actually how to do it, what's useful, how would you go about it, and what things need to be in place for you to do it. I think is almost like the first bit before that anyway. So with you, it's like, well, maybe keep a pen and a piece of paper next to the bed in the evening. I don't know, or have something on your phone where you can capture those thoughts.
I think the what's useful bit is really, really helpful. Like, I'm a bugger. Like, I'm so bad at being like, oh, well, all of these people are doing all of these things and they have like everything. Like, in terms of mindfulness, even, I have a really unhealthy thing where if I see it or if somebody's suggesting it, I don't take it as like, I don't take much in terms of like, you can take it or leave it and you have a
Mm.
choice. I'm like, oh, well, that's the thing that I now need to be doing. And then obviously it's not helpful for me and I don't need to do it. So what's useful is a
Yes.
really helpful question for
Yeah,
me
I
to be
know we've
aware of.
we've talked about this before, but I think the other thing that I'm very aware of is not being influenced.
Yes.
too easily. It's really important for me to be able to get to my own place through my own thinking of what's beneficial, rather than jumping on to things that are either in trend or, what they might be, because as much as they're right for one person, they might not be right for the next person. So I think
Mm.
if you are quite easily influenced, I think it's really important to kind of try to filter that down to actually, what do you feel comfortable with? Rather than trying 50 things, try a couple of things and see how
Yeah.
it goes.
Influencers come at me. I'm the sucker for everything. Voice Sam. But no, that is a really helpful viewpoint that I do need to be aware of in terms of like, maybe it's just that question, like, is it useful or is this for me?
Mm,
Is that maybe that's my barrier, my like
yeah.
interruption. Anyway, thank you. I've also just, whether I include this or not, realised we're on different height levels, and that's just started really
Oh, yeah.
bothering me.
Oh,
And
aren't
if
we?
I'd have just pulled my laptop down a little bit, we would be on the same height. So noted for next time.
See, everything is a learning
Oh,
journey. There we
everything. And
go.
nobody's going to die because I'm slightly lower down than you on the screen.
We'll fix it for next week.
Yeah, if you're watching.
Awesome. Thank you.
Right. Have a good week.